Hey, wanted to talk to you a little bit about where you can find some resources that would help you. When you log in, you can see that you have your dashboard, or you go to the class of 2018, you see the dashboard, you can see where your classes are, project manager, but you can also find that here's where the messages are. You can send replies back and forth, kind of gives you the categories, the calendar, which is just for this class, files, which goes through and shows you where some things are that could be useful tools. These will become more important as you get closer to finishing your product and starting to work on the report, which is the part that is scored. A couple things that we've entered in here that would be useful is looking at what IB says is project for your research. How are you going to document that? What would it look like? This document here is directly from a guide from IB that is also in the files department, and it talks about what is limited, which is the lowest level. That's really on that border of a high F and a D. Adequate is just barely a D, a very low C. Substantial is your B range for the most part, and then excellent is an A range, but it's always above and beyond. So if you're not keeping track of what you're entering, which is one of the reasons why we asked you guys to use Noodle Tools, then you're not going to have much information. So things aren't recorded properly, or you haven't recorded them at all. There's not much data. You want to make sure they record things. If you've talked to somebody and you have information from them, mark it as an interview and get it into Noodle Tools. Write a couple notes in that annotated box to give you some information and reminder about what the conversation was on. If you send an email to someone to get more information, that also is a reference that should be into your bibliography. There is a way to do that and for it to be documented. Again, using that annotation box, and then also being able to make a journal entry. So look through this. It really will help give you an idea of where you might want to add more information. Another file which is useful is this, what is planning like? These are part of the groups of scoring categories for the report, what they're looking at. And here, these are some of the ATLs that go along with planning: your self-management, how well organized you are, your effective skills. But basically, when we ask you to go back and look at the criteria and add dates to it, you were making a miniature timeline. And that's because IB says you need to be setting goals, and you should be keeping a log or a timeline and reflecting upon that when you're making process journal entries as well. How do you keep track of it? Are you real and consistent? Do you do some every week, or do you put it off for a while, come back to it? Those are some things that are scoring categories on the way you approach mastering an independent project on top of the other responsibilities and obligations you have. And again, you can see it starts with limited, goes to adequate, substantial, and excellent. And many of these are very easily done if you just sit down, make yourself do some things on a regular basis. Now, the other document I said that these came out of is right here, where it's the OCC Further Guidance. This is a document that IB rewrote this past summer in June to give us all, your teachers and the staff at West Chester, more information as well. So if we go through and look at it, you can see it gives you some information. Let me make it just a tad smaller. And it talks about what all is based on it. Here it asks you about looking at the different parts of it. You'll have a cover sheet. Quite a few of these things actually are generated by ManageBack. Some of them you'll find out a little bit more in the spring about them. So they're just pieces of it. But here, in the end, Criterion A, which is your investigating, which goes back to your research and your bibliography, it gives you some information. And again, we'll look at that when we go to the report, because that's where these pieces become very critical. But they've given you some great steps to look at. Can you do those things? If not, how do you go back and define them to add that information? And see, then Criterion B is all about planning. C is the taking action part, where you're documenting what you did when you actually put your product together. And then Criterion D is the reflecting at the end. But those aren't as important is when we come on to the next couple pages, and here they talked about these are the very same things that are in the other pages. So we tried to give them to you in a document that could be up. So most of your advisory rooms should have this poster up. They should have the one I'm planning here. Then in November, you're going to see that the thinking skills about taking action, this poster, as well as then one about communication skills, will also go up. They're all pieces to help you build that. Process journal, have more entries, have a better understanding of different steps you could be doing that are parts of the scoring criteria. And then if we just keep going on, you can also talk, it talks a little bit about questions from students and other administrators and people from around the world. So this is really written for both administrators, staff, teachers, supervisors, but also for students. And so that's in here. We're not hiding anything, and we want you to kind of see where things come from. But this is really a good document. It talks about here what should be in the process journal. So take a look at this because it is a real helpful tool. And I hope that you'll find that as we go through things this spring, you're going to find more documents that will be useful here. So always don't worry about stopping and checking in the file section or asking, send an email and say, do you have something on this? Here's where I would like some more help. Thank you for your time.